Initially I wanted to be a vet, having done the bioveterinary science degree, but since then I've been doing the degree, I've felt that it's not really the area I'd like to go into anymore. I did a summer Wellcome Trust project in last summer for 8 weeks over at Lea Hurst, and decided that that area was kind of an area I wanted to look into, and I would be very happy doing a PhD, something like that. So I've applied basically for jobs and PhDs, and I've then got a PhD and I got this job, and I've decided to take the job rather than the PhD because it's more for me and it's getting in with a very good company at an early stage, and hopefully being able to work up and work across the board as well, and knowing that I could do the PhD at a later stage. The job I've been offered is a vascular study scientist at Mars for pedigree, whiskers and all that. It's basically looking at the vascular health and developing foods for vascular health. I went for my interview the other week and just found out that I've got the job, so I'm quite excited. And the office area is absolutely amazing. It's an open plan office, surrounded by all the dogs, and literally dogs are in the office which you use, and the boardroom's all surrounded by cats. So it's literally submersed in all the animals, which is what I've always wanted a job to be in. Well, the job's going to be mainly sort of project managing. So it's someone's above me, but I'm basically there designing trials, implementing the trials, and sort of telling the technicians, I need this dog on this day, can you sort it out? And the same with all the lab staff. So you can get as involved with the animals and the trials as you want, but all the trials, you know, are very much the food's being developed, nothing's going to harm the animal, it's just the last minute trials. So it's all very much hands-on, so I can get involved with the animals as much as I want. They've got a touch zone garden, like some disabled people have touch zone areas, and all the dogs have these touch zones so that a dog can run over a touchpad and a jet of water will shoot up in one part of the garden, and you know, it's all interacting different ways. It's like a herb garden-y area to get different smells, just so that the dog's reacting to different stimuli as much as possible, and trying to create a normal and varied environment. So, and each dog is housed in groups of 3. Each has got sort of heated mats and everything like that, all state-of-the-art facilities with like a big paddock for each of the 3 lots of dogs. So it's absolutely fantastic quality of living for them. Came in from a very, very early point, from the summer of 2nd year. Initially to apply for veterinary, because I knew that the deadline was sort of the 15th of October, so it was very soon. And having spoken to Wendy England, I decided that veterinary might not be for me, and that I wasn't 100% committed to applying, and I knew that in myself. So I felt that I wouldn't apply this time round, and I could easily do that after graduation if that's still what I wanted. And then that really narrowed it down to 2 other areas, PhD and a job. So I continued with both areas. I came and saw Wendy about all my sort of my CV and applications and things like that, and I basically did it from as early as I felt was possible. However, it probably wasn't early enough, because some of the companies, I think Procter & Gamble was one, who had a very early closure point for their management or development programs, their graduate programs, which I think was sort of beginning of October, something like that. So I actually missed those deadlines. And so yes, but I think the main thing is to start looking, certainly the summer of 2nd year, because there's so many different areas out there which you need to look at, and different things you need to be certain in yourself what areas you'd like to go into. So I think it's definitely best to do it as soon as possible, rather than leaving it to the last minute like a lot of people I know. Well, the application process was basically an online process. I had to apply online by filling out a form and everything, but I also submitted my CV and my covering letter within the application, so it wasn't just a straightforward CV and covering letter. I came in and saw Wendy an awful lot to check everything was okay, check the forms were fine, just to try and perfect the application as much as possible, and then submitted it. They all give deadlines, so you have to make sure you're well within the deadline. I then sort of got an email to say that they'd like to invite me for a telephone interview, which is probably more daunting than actually going to an interview. I certainly find it easier to speak to people face to face than on the telephone. So I thought, oh gosh, I'm going to fall at this hurdle after the telephone interview, which only lasted about 10 minutes. And really, I think the only thing they wanted to know was your experience. And then they basically paid for me to go to their assessment centre, which is actually at Waltham on the Wolds, which is sort of their main base for Pedigree and Whiskers for the developing. It was all expenses paid, so they paid for my train fare, they paid for the hotel overnight. You know, I had to organise the hotel overnight and the train fare, but that was absolutely fine. I spoke to them to see which one they would recommend and things. And it was a very nice hotel. They paid for the evening meal, they paid, you know, it was all expenses paid. And so when I got to the assessment centre, it started at 8:30 in the morning. So it was very early. And so I arrived and there were 7 other people there, which was a bit daunting because I thought, gosh, there's a lot of people going for this one job. But then I found out that actually they were interviewing for 2 jobs. There was one which was the research scientist, which is the next level up to the study scientist. And then there was the study scientist. So there were 2 jobs going. So there were actually only 4 people for each job. So that wasn't as bad. The assessment centre day basically started where everyone sat around in a boardroom type thing. And there was basically Charlene was stood at the front and there were a couple of other HR people. And they sort of said, let's start by introducing ourselves. So we had to introduce ourselves and just introduce us by name and what our favourite animal was. So that was just quite straightforward, just sort of broke the ice. And then they did a presentation for us about Mars, the company, and Pedigree and everything like that, and what the day was going to consist of. We then had to go into a room where half of us we were split off. Half went and did interviews and presentations straight away. The other half were preparing for it was this problem-based session where you were given sort of a dog food brand and they wanted to add a herbal ingredients to the dog food. So which one was best? Why was it better? And you had to argue it from sort of the dog's health point of view, but also the business point of view. So it was encompassing all areas. And anyway, so my first thing was my presentation. We had to do a presentation entitled, well, what qualities could you bring to Pedigree itself for the study scientist? And basically, that was, about 8 slides long, lasted 10 minutes. That was fine, and then there were some questions afterwards. So I was a bit nervous because it was only the 3rd one I did, but it was absolutely fine. They said to me once I'd got the job, the reason I'd got it was because I applied my knowledge from a lot of different areas. So I looked at the scenarios and saw what benefits they had. So I placed them. For example, one of the treatments helped skin problems. So I said, a Highland Terrier would be good for this sort of supplement because they are prone to skin problems. And so I was relating a lot of my vet experience and my experience I've gained over the years wanting to do veterinary to the actual thing. And they said that I showed the highest analytical skills out of all the candidates because of being able to do that. So that's always a good thing, to try and bring everything you've learned throughout your degree, your experience, just everything into the scenario. So we then had to, once we'd done this sort of analytical interpretation thing, we had to then go and speak to another 2 people and present our proposed ingredient for the food and state why we wanted it, why we sort of discounted all the others and why we wanted this specific one. both sort of from the business point of view and the animals. So it was quite good, but we had to do that for about 10 minutes. Then they sort of fired questions like you saying, why this, why that. So it was a bit sort of nerve-wracking, but it wasn't anything really to worry about. They make you feel very comfortable and everything. And then after that, it was basically my final interview. A lot of people didn't actually know what the biovet degree was. You had to, as I was saying earlier, you had to introduce yourselves. And like the HR lady and Charlene both said exactly what they did and things like that. One other man said it before when we were going around the table. And then it got to me and no one else had. They just sort of said the name and things, but I found out later on it was all because they were jobless at the moment. But I said that I was a third-year bioveterinary science student at the University of Liverpool, and everyone just looked at me. And I was just like, yes. And then they sort of said, so what is biovet? I said, oh, it's half veterinary and half biology. And I think when you say it's half veterinary, a lot of the companies look at you in a different light, because they're like, oh, they've actually done it alongside vets, assessed the same way. So it's a bit different compared to other biovet degrees, sort of, I think one's at Lincoln or something like that, there's a biovet degree, which don't have that veterinary side to them. So you've got a strong, strong bit in the fact that you actually do the vet side with the vets, and it's not just biology orientated. They haven't really mentioned exactly what training there is, but Mars do a scheme which is called Mars University. So you can gain further qualifications in animal handling and things like that through them, from what I understand. There is also the chance that if you want to go on and do a PhD in your area of research, then they'll support that throughout. So a very good health scheme, which we can enrol in for a small amount of money each month. Yeah. They've got a pension scheme as well, which is contributory. And then you've got a fantastic salary, and my starting salary is $24,000. So it's a fantastic starting salary for a graduate. Basically, I'd say that you want to apply to as many sort of animal-related companies or companies themselves as possible. Don't just necessarily apply to the animal companies. I apply to people like Unilever as well. I'd recommend anyone to come into careers and just get their CV checked and their covering letters checked. Just get everything checked before it's sent off, because they help you and you realise you've got some mistakes which are actually stupid mistakes, and they'll help you sort of correct those and actually make it a really strong application, rather than something, if you didn't come to careers, you'd go in with a weak application and not necessarily get the job because of your weak application. So at least by seeing someone who is more specialised in applying for jobs in careers, you're able to sort of get that and perfect it a bit more and strive harder to get the job.